while working full-time. We took all of that experience and built a mentorship program called the Victory Strategy to unlock every step of investing in real estate. If that sounds like the opportunity you've been waiting for, look us up at thevictorystrategy.com.
Hey folks, welcome back to Biz Talk. Thank you for joining us. My name is Rick Gutierrez. I am your host and your business advocate. We love doing this show because we get to interview, have conversations with subject matter experts in their field. That means that they've been in business for quite some time, so they know their trade, they know all of the tips, tricks, and insights behind what goes on in business and their particular industry. And we have a great time every single week when we have these conversations because these folks, like I said, they come from all backgrounds, all different sorts of businesses, and we have unique conversations to help you, the potential new business owner, and or someone who is looking to get into business on any type of profession. But with that being said, I've got an amazing expert when it comes to family law. She is one of the most qualified people to be doing family law, and she's my good friend, Abigail Stoff. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. I appreciate it. It's always great to catch up with you.
Absolutely. We had a great conversation last time that we were on, and we said, why not just continue the conversation? Our viewers are going to continue to enjoy these conversations and learn from you, the expert. And so, everything that we're going to talk about is questions and topics that sometimes in these conversations we talk about stuff that maybe sometimes they're hard conversations or something sometimes that people just don't want to deal with it, but it's something that we must talk about because it is a necessity to get educated on some of these topics. And it happens to be with innovations in child support law, which I know that you are an expert in, Abigail. And so let's talk a little bit about child support laws and how intricate they could potentially be, and how you potentially navigate the complexities of some of these cases to secure the best and fair outcome.
Yeah, so New Jersey support looks at different factors, right? Child support in every state is really governed by the guidelines and the laws of that state. In Jersey, what we look to first and foremost is the combined family net income. So if you are above a certain threshold, we look towards one avenue, and if you are below, we look at another way. So if you're below the combined net threshold, then we do a child support guideline, which is it's a calculator basically that gives us the number for support. But then there are the people, and these are really going to be most of your listeners, where the family combined net income is going to exceed that threshold. In that event, what we have to do is we have to look at the statutory factors, which are very detailed, and we have to go into depth to explain why child support should be a certain number. And so how we do that, we ourselves, is through documents and discovery. That's how my firm does it. So I tell my clients, I need to know what it costs to raise your children. And then I want documents to prove it. I do not allow my clients to take their best guess. I don't want to hear, well, I think it's about. That's not going to work for me. Mm-hmm. We are not looking for a national or a local average. But what I'm looking for is the cost to raise your child. And I can give you a quick example. So I live in New Jersey and I have 2 children. I can promise you that Abby, do not spend the same amount for my children that the parents of Gada Matarazzo, who was on Stranger Things, who lives only a few towns away. They're spending way more than I'm spending on my children because there's a different need. He needs to travel. He needs certain clothing. He needs certain professional care for hair or skin, etc., that my kids just don't require. My children require more activity-based like volleyball and sports. That's where my expenses go. So
Hmm.
it's really important to look at what those needs for those children, for that family are, and then we plug them into the factors to really figure out how we can best move this family forward.
So not every case is the same, right? Every case has its own, complexities and different needs that the children's different lifestyles. You got to take that into consideration as well. But having someone like you to be there to be an advocate for that, I think it's crucial for anyone who ends up using your services, hiring you, because you know how to navigate those conversations for a fair outcome for everyone, right? So they make sure that everyone is well taken care of and well represented. My next question for you is, let's talk a little bit about how changes in law have affected the way that you've handled child support cases. I imagine laws change all the time.
They do. And in fact, there was two major changes not too long ago. One was a change to the alimony law in 2014, and one was a change to the palimony law in 2010. And you had referenced lifestyle, and lifestyle is a very significant factor when you're talking about child support and also alimony. Palimony we'll put aside because that's a whole different beast. But it was prior to those changes where child support we would look at almost secondary to alimony, where you figure out the alimony first, you look at lifestyle because the kids were a derivative beneficiary of the alimony recipient's payment. So if I was getting paid a certain amount and we were taking into consideration my entire mortgage, well, then I don't have to consider that mortgage expense for my children. Flip it around a bit. When that alimony law changed in 2014, in some cases, pushing the child support calculation forward and really diving deep into why we were coming up with the numbers we were considering was very important because we weren't just calculating for that time, that snapshot of when we were doing it. What we were really trying to create was a formula for determining future calculations. Because when you determine your first calculation, that becomes the law of the case, and that's how you determine the future calculations.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why, and I say this a lot, you're going to hear me say it a lot, discovery, discovery, discovery. This is why we demand proofs of the spend, because we don't want estimates that are going to hurt us in the future. We want actual costs when we're building out that algebraic formula to calculate support later.
And what are some of those pieces of proof that you would require to have that type of discovery?
So I can take my own life as an example, right?
Okay.
So if I was using my own life and I was saying, well, for my children, I need $1,000 a month. And someone said, well, why do you need $1,000 a month? Well, I would bring forward my cell phone cost for just my children. I would bring forward their auto insurance cost.
Mm-hmm.
My daughter plays volleyball, so I would bring forward all of her volleyball costs. She cheered, I would bring forward all her cheer cost. My
Right.
son takes secondary early college courses while he was in high school. I'd bring forward all those costs. And then I would also bifurcate and allocate a percentage of my utilities, food, prescription drugs, hair supplies. I mean, again, I
Yep.
have a daughter, so
Mm-hmm.
Ulta's not cheap. So that's the kind of stuff you want to bring forward. That's how you really show what your spend is for your child.
Yeah, I remember because I have a 34-year-old daughter, and I remember when she was young. And so, yes, there is a lot of needs there. Let's talk a little bit about your practice and many of the innovative approaches that you've implemented in your practice to deal with some of the child support disputes. I imagine that technology changes all the time, but it's not so much technology sometimes. It's a lot about, talk tracks and how to navigate conversations and things like that, right?
It is. Some people are very, very resistant to providing support to the other parent. Usually it has to do with that emotional issue. They may not trust the other parent's spending habits. They don't trust that the money is going to go for the children. You name it, and we've heard it. So there's a thousand reasons why one parent does not want to give the other parent a weekly, blank check, if you will, by just
Right.
handing over money. So what we do in those cases is we look towards ways that we can ensure the children's needs are getting met while still retaining some semblance of control. Seems negative. It's not control in the negative sense, but in the involved sense. So to do that, you also have to teach people how to communicate. Some ways we've done that is we've said, okay, well, dad's going to pay for all of the extracurricular activities. And again, likening it to myself, that's an expensive ask. So I would have to make sure that I would communicate to dad, this is what's coming up, this is what we need, and this is how much it's going to be. Dad would likewise have to respond back, got it, paid it, done. Other ways you can do it, we've had parents give their children a debit card that they fund independently so the kids can pay their own expenses. We've had non-custodial parents give custodial parents credit cards that they use for certain defined expenses, grocery store, Target, things like that. There's really a lot of ways to approach child support disputes and a lot of ways to settle them. It's really about learning and knowing the issues, and more importantly, knowing the litigants and the emotions that are hindering that resolution.
You know, I appreciate just the thought behind that. It's not just about having the best outcome, but also educating folks on how to communicate. I don't know personally of any attorneys that actually take the time to teach their clients on how to communicate with one another, right? Because it's a crucial part in order for all parties to get along and find a way to move forward and find those talk tracks to move forward in the relationship. And so kudos to you and your firm for educating folks on how to communicate when they're going through those things. Not many do that, and so you guys do, and that's the reason why you guys are experts in what you do. Okay, Abigail, I think it's been a fantastic conversation. I know we covered a little bit about, child support law and all of those great things, but we're going to be talking some more in future segments for this show, Biz Talk. But for now, before we go, I'd like to give you an opportunity to kind of just showcase and or zoom in a little bit on how our viewers can get in touch with you, in case they have any additional questions and or potentially, set up a consult.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And I really do always enjoy coming and talking to you. I can be found at my website, jerseycoastfamilylaw.com. I do encourage people to go read it. It gives you the background of myself, my staff, our mission as a firm, and some of our kind of our beliefs and ideals in practicing law. On that page, you can also find a Contact Us tab and our phone number, 732-361-4718, and you can always reach us through the telephone, good old-fashioned way.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We appreciate you joining us again in another episode here of Biz Talk. We look forward to having you in upcoming shows, so definitely, I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you. All right, folks, we are going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with additional guests, so stay right there. We'll be right back.
Definitivamente necesito uno.
Do you have diabetes? If you have insurance, you may qualify for a new continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends, spend more time in range, significantly lower your A1C, and share important data with loved ones and caregivers. Most importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Take charge of your health. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and have seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for a CGM today. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances cover continuous glucose monitors, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the CGM Health Hotline now.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
How would you like to go on a 5-star vacation for just $99? We're talking about the quality of a Westgate resort for $99. Not for one night, but for 3 fantastic nights at one of their luxurious destinations across the United States. And you'll even get a free $100 Visa gift card just for making a reservation. We've got some of the choicest destinations that you'll love in the United States that you can choose from for just $99 for a 3-night stay. Take your family, take a special loved one, but get away. Go on vacation with Westgate Resorts. Call now to make a reservation for just $99, and you get a free $100 Visa gift card. Call Westgate right now and book your vacation. Here's the number.
Call 877-930-3491. That's 877-930-3491. Again, 877-930-3491.
Hey folks, welcome back to Biz Talk. My name is Rick Gutierrez. In case you're just now tuning in, I am your host and your business advocate, and we've got another amazing subject matter expert in everything that has to do with family law, which I think is a very interesting topic. Having been there and done that back in the past, it's interesting to have these conversations with an expert that, you know, basically I'm learning as we all are. So I'm excited to bring back Abigail Stoff back to the show. Welcome back to the show, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's always an amazing conversation when you join the show because, as I said, we all get to learn a little bit about your practice, your expertise. We kind of zoom in a little bit on those expertise and provide, you know, our viewers with great content, you know, that they could potentially think about maybe even contacting you for your services. So one of the things that we want to know and we want to talk about is integrating mediation in practice. So if you don't mind, we're going to dive into that and just kind of talk a little bit about how has your incorporating mediation into your practice changed the way that you handle family law cases?
Well, I'll tell you, this is a loaded question. Keeping in mind I'm both a mediator as well as a litigator who participates in mediation. So, you know, depending on which hat I'm wearing, this question might be, you know, one way or the other. But oftentimes when a new client comes to me, you know, my job at first is to determine the basic issues in their case. One of the basic issues is where and in what county the case is going to be heard. Depending on the complement of judges for that county, I may recommend that we immediately engage a mediator to facilitate them in their process. This has nothing to do with whether I like the judges or whether I don't like the judges. It has nothing to do with personal preference. But instead, you know, I tend to keep my finger on the pulse of backlog, how long it takes to get an order out of a county, which way some judges typically lean on certain topics. And sometimes the way a judge leans may not conform to what the clients are asking. So in those cases, I will immediately call my adversary to try to choose a mediator who we think the family's demands can be met with. Demands you would consider: time, investment, understanding the issues in your case, whether it's custody disputes, medical issues, complex financial issues. So when you're choosing a mediator, you really want to make sure you're working with someone who can meet your needs. As a mediator, I do the same thing. I ask the issues that the clients are presenting. I want to know why they're here. What do they need? What are they hoping to get out of this? And what are the hot topics we have to discuss? When I know what those are, I then go independently and I gather my legal research, my empirical research. I might compile a team that I think is necessary, such as maybe outside accountants to facilitate a resolution. I'm working in a case right now where there's some significantly complex medical issues coupled with very complex tax issues. In that case, we're getting really two teams of professionals to help in drafting what's going to be the final resolution. So it depends on what the need is of the client.
I guess it also depends on how much people have time, I guess, because mediation could potentially take a while to get everything resolved. So, but then again, I mean, if they wanted to get it resolved right away, I mean, it could benefit them, but also not benefit you, because the longer the mediation goes, right, better for your practice and all of those good things. But it all has to do with how much time people want to spend on being in mediation. So. With that said, I know that you cannot go into deep detail about any of your cases, and I totally respect that. But just maybe if we can uncover a little bit of an overview of an example of a case that was successfully resolved through mediation and avoiding the courtroom.
So it's funny because a lot of people ask, especially when they're interviewing me to be a mediator, they'll ask about the success rate of mediation. And what I tell everyone who comes through the door is that every case is resolvable, right? The divorce settlement rate through mediation in New Jersey, meaning the cases that are not going to trial, is somewhere around 98 or 99%, which means 98 or 99% of the cases that are divorce litigations in New Jersey resolve outside of court, meaning judges really only do, 5 to 10 divorce trials in a year. That's really a large number. So when you keep in mind the judge's docket, the number of cases in the year, what that really means is that the majority of cases are being settled in a conference room with two attorneys, or settled in a conference room with two attorneys, two clients, and a mediator. So when you ask a question about success of a single case, it's really every case. But for me, I've settled through mediation very complex financial matters involving multiple businesses, multiple entities, significant assets, which were both diversified through financial investment houses and private investments, along with a lot of real estate. In this particular case, the one I described with that holding, the family was worth well into the multi-millions. By doing our homework with our client and our adversary before we sat at the table with a mediator, we were able to resolve the entire case in 3 sessions, which sounds like a lot. 3 sessions of mediation sounds like a lot, but when you consider a portfolio of that substance, 3 cases or 3 sessions is really quite narrow. Yep. So I think what that case taught me was I always have to know, go in with choosing the right mediator, because that's going to be how you settle your case, is by knowing which mediator is the right one to work with. In that particular case, I worked with a mediator who had a substantial financial background, as opposed to someone who had a custody background that really couldn't have helped in that level of financial disparity.
Yeah, it's everyone's got their special skill sets, right? I mean, it's what makes them stronger than others in certain particular areas. But with that said, my next question is around new attorneys. I mean, we've got new attorneys coming out of law school almost every day. But if you were to talk to a new attorney and they were to ask you, what are some of the essential skills for effective mediation in family law, what would you tell them?
This one's so easy. Listening. The most essential skill to successfully and effectively mediate a case is to listen. That will ensure that the litigants come back to the table because they know you're listening. Clients going through this process, whether they're your client or whether you're the mediator and you're working with them as that outside professional, they want to be heard. They want to be understood. They want to be acknowledged, whether you're affirming their feelings or confirming that you understand their need, right? Because those are two different things. If you, as a mediator, can bridge that emotional gap, you've made a connection with that person, that litigant, that's going to foster the trust between the two of you and encourage a final resolution. So listening, affirmation, confirmation of understanding, that's what I would tell a young lawyer is needed for mediation.
I completely agree. I mean, because it's all about effective communication, right? But effective communication could potentially go out the window if basically it goes in one ear and out the other, and we're not actively listening and ensuring that our clients are not only knowing that we're listening, but they also need to feel that we are listening. And every time that we meet with them again, they have to feel that last session is just as important as this one, and being able to bring back certain points, certain topics from the last session to be able to continue to move that conversation forward. That is amazing. I was not thinking that that's where you were going to go with the answer to that question, but it's true. I mean, active listening just goes to show you that it's effective when you're actually listening. It's effective in every industry, for every service, for every product that we're trying to sell. Listening to the client is always, what's going to get you either the case, or it's going to get you the business, or it's going to get you the new customers, and it's going to drive business forward. So listening is huge. So one last question that I had for you, Abigail. I know that you guys, your firm is always looking for new talent, right? New attorneys that are coming out of law school. What are some of those skill sets that you are looking for to bring on board to your practice?
When I interview a young lawyer, I want to know a couple things. I want to know that they can write, meaning that they can write legally, right? Know how to research and write a brief. I want to know that they can work well with my office staff. But my number one question that I ask everyone who I interview is to do a mock telephone call. That's my number one question. Because if someone cannot engage on the telephone, then I know that they're not going to be able to work with the clients who I need them to work with. Because people who I work with want to have an individual independent relationship with their counsel, and they don't want it to be through email. Email is wonderful, except when it's misunderstood. So my number one for a new lawyer is to know how to use the telephone.
Yeah, to learn how to communicate. Once again, one of those topics that we're always talking about. I always say that email is great, but I am not a fan of thinking that email is the first method of communication. A phone call is always the best way to go, but that may be because I'm kind of old school, and that's just that's just me. But it's effective. I mean, you're right. The emails is great until it's not. So we pick up the phone. Well, hey, Abby, I certainly appreciate you being on the show once again. I think these conversations are helping not only myself but many others with your expertise, and we appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, always. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, folks, we are going to take another commercial break. We're going to be back with another subject matter experts in business. We'll be right back. Stay right there.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
Investing in real estate doesn't have to be a pipe dream. But how do you find, analyze, renovate, finance investment properties without getting ripped off? My name's Andrew Glisson. In 4 short years, me and my team built a portfolio of 200 rental properties in multiple cities as a hobby while working full-time. We took all of that experience and built a mentorship program called the Victory Strategy to unlock every step of investing in real estate. If that sounds like the opportunity you've been waiting for, look us up at thevictorystrategy.com.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Hey folks, welcome back to Biz Talk. In case you are just now tuning in, my name is Rick Gutierrez. I am your host and your business advocate, and I absolutely love doing this show and being the host of this show because I get to learn from subject matter experts, and so will you. So we have an amazing lineup of guests that are going to be here with us today. These are business professionals, business owners, business that have been in business for a very long time, and they've been there, they've done that, so we want to learn all from them so that we don't make the same mistakes. So with that said, I want to welcome back to the show Abigail Stoff. Welcome back to the show, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's always a fun time having you. I think, last conversations that we've had, we've learned quite a bit from you in terms of, family law and different types of cases and what you guys handle and what you guys, what's your bread and butter and how great you guys are and the great jobs that you're doing for many families. So we thank you for all your work that you're doing. But this topic here for this show, Abigail, it's, I think, something that most people don't want to talk about, but it must be talked about because somebody's got to do it, and that's going to be you, right? So it's all about child custody advocacy, and people want to know, moving through that child custody, what principles guide your advocacy for children in these sensitive cases?
Right, so custody is the hard one, right? That's the emotional one. And what I try to explain to all my clients is that my job as an advocate for them is my job as an advocate for them, meaning I'm not advocating per se for the children, but instead I'm advocating for my client and the family dynamic. And I can do that. I can do that for them having time with their children. I can do that for them having custody of their children, so long as the statutory factors can be satisfied to show me, the court, my adversary, that whatever I'm advocating for is actually in the child's best interest. And sometimes the line between advocating for a client and advocating for a child on behalf of a client can seem blurred a lot of the time. In fact, I just concluded a case, I think it was maybe 2 weeks ago, where the lines between the advocacy for the client and the advocacy on behalf of the child often could not even be found. It was so entwined and entangled. But at the end of the day, what I did and what I do is I stick to the statutory factors that guide custody. They guide any case involving custody. And even when those lines between advocating for a client versus advocating for a child are not as clear, the statutory factors have a way of setting out the correct outcome.
Setting out the correct outcome. That's, what we all strive for, right? But you've got your hands full with those type of cases, and I can only imagine the conversations that you have to have. And, my heart goes out to the families that have to go through that, and obviously you that have to help those families, but you do an amazing job. And one of the reasons why I say that is because I think you can basically shine some light, and you don't need to go into any details. I know that you can't, but, maybe discuss a little bit of a particular impactful child custody case that you've been involved with.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I can't, and thank you for acknowledging that I actually can't talk about
Right.
specific cases.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you the case I was just referring to a moment ago. That had been a custody case that had been going on for over a decade. When we finally settled it a week ago, or a couple weeks ago, I'm sorry. Um, it's overwhelmingly emotional for the clients. It's overwhelmingly emotional as an advocate to finally see that decade-long battle conclude. And to see it conclude with a recognition that the child is where the child should properly be in order to have their needs best suited. And I think that they're, again, you try not to get too involved and you try to keep a distance, but there are those times when, especially when you're with a family for a decade, you can't not become invested in making sure that these children have what they need and from whom they need it. And that does not mean that a child is taken away from the other parent. It's just a recognition that each parent provides a role, and it's not a gender role. It's their personality and how that works with the child and how that makes the child flourish and grow. And I think that, it's always nice to see.
Yeah, it's the best possible outcome is what we always strive for, right? Particularly for the children involved, and that's something that I've always thought that it was something very particular for that particular role, that particular to be in that position that you are in, and so I don't know. It's just one of the things that I've always said is that everyone in the middle, like you and I, age-wise, we can defend ourselves, but it's children and the elderly that always need, someone to be there to help them and protect them. And so that's the reason why I'm passionate about always being of service to children and the elderly to ensure that they're not being abused and make sure that they have the best outcome possible. So with that said, what are some of the strategies that you use to navigate the emotional landscape of, custody in some of these cases?
Well, as in any high conflict cases, child custody cases carry a tremendous amount of emotion when we've talked about that. I do not hesitate from shying away from those emotional conversations with my clients and encouraging ongoing continued therapy, family therapy, children therapy, whatever may be needed. And as the case develops, there may be different therapeutic needs. The emotion that gets into and seeps through a child custody case is very often palatable. You have two people who genuinely love the people or person who is at issue or in dispute. Sometimes that requires my silence, because when we're in a room, my client may need to navigate their own emotion in that moment. It may require my input. I may need to give some advice in order to help them through that emotion, or it may require moments of levity. You want to help the client to quickly transition so that the case can continue forward. So we need, in these emotional landscapes, we really need clients to be with us, walking their journey, but also recognizing the battle that their own emotion is doing to them internally. Custody is not easy. There's no cookie cutter formula. It's very much its own beast, and there's no expected emotional response. We know everyone's going to have an emotional response, but we can't always predict what it's going to be. So I say that working a high conflict custody case is often akin to being a stand-up comedian, because you have to read the room and you have to pivot appropriately. Right. And that's really my job.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I was going to mention. I mean, you have to be able to step out at a certain point, right, and to be able to adjust your alignment as far as where you need to redirect what's important to be able to be a better service to your clients, right? So I think that's an enormous amount of professionalism, and again, kudos to you for being that level of professional. But I think one of those things that our clients basically want to see and want to showcase your expertise here a little bit in this continuing conversation about family law. When therapy is needed, what is the best approach? How do you navigate that conversation?
I hit it head on.
You rip the Band-Aid off.
Sugarcoat it. I think that if you see someone has a problem or is having an emotional response at any point in your relationship with them, we're talking professionally, but the truth is that it's personal as well, right? You have to be very few words, blunt, direct. So if I feel like my client could use therapy, or if I feel like, I hear what you're saying, how you interact with your child, but there might be a better way to handle this. Let's go to a family counselor and figure that out. Because we all do the best we can as parents, but listen, there's no book, right? We're all just kind of winging it and winging a prayer. So sometimes we need to have that conversation and say, I know you're a great parent and I know you're well-intentioned, but for whatever reason, your child isn't responding to that. So let's talk about how we get there. So my philosophy is the fewer the words, the more effective the conversation.
That's, the reason why I asked that is because, there's got to be so many different ways you can handle that conversation, right? I mean, it just depends on the individual and the timing and how you can perceive that individual is going to take, the suggestions, right? So let's talk a little bit about Jersey Coast family law. How long have you guys been in business? I know you mentioned in a previous episode that you have been practicing over 20 years, but let's talk about your firm.
So my firm is actually pretty much a baby. Jersey Coast Family Law was born on January 1, 2024, following the dissolution of a prior partnership that I was in for 10 years, which was formed after a reconfiguring of a prior partnership. So I've been doing this for, like I said, quite some time at this point. Jersey Coast Family Law, however, is brand new, but I'm the drive behind the force. So with Jersey Coast Family Law comes my years of experience and the many years of experience of my team, all of whom have been with me for years.
That's fantastic. So congratulations on the new venture, on the new company. That is amazing. Sometimes when we step out on our own like that, it just, sometimes it has its challenges of its own. Plus you still need to be of service to your clients, so can never deviate from that. So kudos on the new company. So we have come to the close of this segment. I want to thank you for being on the show. I think this conversation was amazing and it showcases your expertise and the reason why our viewers need to contact Jersey Coast Family Law in case they are needed. They are there for you. So tell us once again, Abigail, how do we get a hold of you?
Yes, thank you. You can go to our website at jerseycoastfamilylaw.com. I suggest you read it, learn about our philosophies, learn about our practice areas, learn about how we can help and service you, and then give us a call at 732-361-4718 to schedule an appointment.
Awesome. Abigail, thank you again so much for being on the show. I look forward to more amazing conversations that you and I are going to have on this show. So I appreciate you, and I'll see you again soon.
Great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right, folks, we have come to the end of this segment. We definitely do appreciate you sticking in there. Stay right there. We're going to be right back with another subject matter expert.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Hey folks, welcome back to Biz Talk. We're excited that you are back with us. My name is Rick Gutierrez. I am your host and your business advocate. We have a great show lined up for you today, and we're excited to have these conversations because these are folks that have been in business for quite some time, and so they are the experts, subject matter experts, as I like to call them, because they have been there, done that, and they are here to showcase their expertise. With that being said, I want to welcome back Abigail Stolf. Welcome back to the show, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
Absolutely. It's always a great conversation, and I think the last couple of times you and I have had this conversation, it's led to many other amazing conversations which our viewers are finding really, really exciting, and they're getting to learn from you, the expert, when it comes to family law. So one of those things that our clients or our viewers are always, wanting to know more is about you, about your practice, and what you have done throughout the years to become that expert, right? So with that said, one of the things that people always want to know is the topic basically for today is developing expertise in divorce proceedings, right? Because it has all to do with, family law. So as you honed in your expertise, what aspects of divorce did you find most challenging, and how did you overcome them?
That's a great question. Most people look at divorce lawyers and assume that the difficulties in divorce or the challenging components of the divorce are the financial aspects. For me, that's just not true. For me, the cases that are most challenging are cases where custody is at issue. And that custody can be complex or seemingly simple to the outside world, right? But those cases, whether a complex custody case or a seemingly simple custody case, are always driven by emotion. And that emotion really transcends religion, race, culture. That's where the difficulty lies. And how do I overcome that? I overcome that by having some strict rules, right? I have some strict personal, professional rules for myself to make sure I don't get sucked into that emotion, because it's really my job to stay outside of it and to help navigate my client and the family to the next level. So I do that really quite simply. Number one, I do not look at pictures of children or families. I do not engage in the personal lives of my clients. I don't become Facebook friends or any of the other social friends. I do not engage outside of the office with my clients. I do not engage with their children. So if they go to school with my children, or if I'm in any kind of social setting, I am very deliberate to not engage with the children of my clients in a conflicted case. It's really my job to get out of the emotion, and by getting out of the emotion, it helps me work through those high conflict cases, because sometimes the facts that I hear are really terrible facts, and they're terrible to convey to someone else if I have to tell an expert or a judge, and a lot of times they're really terrible to imagine. So it's important I would take a money case any day of the week over a high conflict custody case, because those are the ones where you really are making an impact on so many generations. And so I try to be very mindful of how my experience with this family is going to shape children, grandchildren, great grandchildren through that time.
Yeah, I imagine there's got to be a very hard limit to how much you can get involved. I mean, obviously you're going to ask a million questions, right? That's your job. But, limiting yourself as to how deep of those questions or how the answers, how deep they go, that's when you need to manage. And I can imagine it's got its challenges, just within that, because and it's interesting. I find it interesting that you mentioned that you don't look at the pictures and all of those things. I mean, that takes an enormous amount of professionalism and an enormous amount of passion for wanting to stay as a true professional to your clients. And I think that is completely admirable, and kudos to you for being able to do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. One of our viewers wanted to learn more about insights on how you manage complex assets divisions in a divorce case. Is that something that you can discuss a little bit?
I can, especially after what we just talked about. So asset division is a cakewalk compared to the custody cases, right? Complex asset division is really more than just knowing the value of an asset. I can look at a bank account and I can say, okay, today it has $100,000 in it. That doesn't really help us decide asset division, because what I really need to know is what is the value of the asset, the value of the asset's subparts, and the future value. Does it have a carry forward tax benefit? Does it have a capital gains implication that another asset may not? Even though on their face they might both be $100,000, they could be two very different $100,000. So it's really, for me, important that I learn not just the face value, but the intrinsic value that can carry forward into other realms of asset division. So when I do that, I obviously conference with my client. I conference with my client's professionals. So if they have a financial advisor or tax advisor, business advisor, whomever their professional may be, I like to conference with them as well. And then I might resource out to a third party professional who I trust, who might be able to look at these assets a little bit differently than someone who's in the box. It's really important that you manage all of the touchstones of the asset as you're moving through the case. You have to consider these divorce cases take some time, and these assets are a dynamic force in a case. And therefore, at all times, we have to understand all those touch points as we're moving towards resolution of a case.
Yeah, I imagine that the time that it takes to settle some of these complex cases could be months. Sometimes it could take years, and it just really depends. And so that's something that people need to take in consideration when, I guess, when you're thinking about buying all kinds of assets when you are married, and you need to be aware that that's a possibility. It could take months, and
absolutely.
Right, and Abigail and her firm, obviously, they go through all of the right processes to help everyone with that. But we talked about this in another segment, Abigail, but I think it's crucial because there's going to be a lot of new attorneys coming out of law school, and you potentially will hire some of them, right? So you have new attorneys coming on board and providing them with their first go at a particular case. How do you help them navigate themselves through that first case?
So this segment being basically about professional development, right? That's kind of the key here. The advice that I give to a new lawyer who's handling a case, listen, your first high conflict case is memorable. Your first case is memorable, but your first high conflict case is memorable. It doesn't matter what kind of case it is. It could be custody, it could be money. It doesn't matter, because high conflict means high emotion, right? Conflict equals emotion. So whenever I speak with a young lawyer and I'm trying to guide them on how to handle these cases, I always suggest that they do not shy away from confronting their client's emotions when needed, making the proper suggestion to the client to get the right professional involved. Whether you're dealing with assets or children, that emotional connection has to be dealt with. I think it's important that young lawyers do not treat therapy either towards their client or towards themselves as taboo. It is completely appropriate to be emotionally prepared for any case. So if you're a young lawyer and you're starting your first high conflict case and it makes you nervous, and it does make you nervous, talk to someone. If you are a client coming in, or if you're working with a client who's coming in who just doesn't seem to be emotionally prepared for what you know they're about to go through, you have to tell them, I suggest you get therapy and come back to me in 6 months. Let's talk in 6 months, because you don't know what you're about to embark on. And I can tell you it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I was, one of the first things that come to my mind is, the level of nervousness and, for them to be able to perform, especially when they are in a court setting, right? So what is your best advice going into in a court setting?
Oh, be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. I think when you go in, listen, I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this over 20 years at this point. There is not one court case I go into in this level of experience, as quote unquote easy as it may be, without having read the entire file the night before, having reiterated to myself the theme of the case, putting it big letters on top of my legal pad so I don't forget it as I'm arguing it, because you do have to pivot a lot when you're in the courtroom. You could be standing and arguing before a judge 1 minute, talking to a client on the stand the next minute, and 4 minutes later in judge's chambers having a conversation that you just didn't expect to even have. So you really need to know the ins and outs of every case that you walk in on.
Absolutely. So I imagine there's got to be a first for everyone, and that's no different than any other job. But being in that particular setting, I know that me personally, I would probably freak out and not know what to do. That's because I'm not an attorney, and I leave that to the experts, to handle all of those things. So, Abigail, it's been an amazing conversation here today. Thank you so much for showcasing your expertise to our viewers. I think our viewers will also like to know a little bit more about how we can get in touch with you. So how would that be?
Sure, thank you. You could visit our website at jerseycoastfamilylaw.com. It's a great resource to see, who we are and how we developed and how we can help you if we can help you. From there, you can call us at 732-361-4718 and schedule a Zoom conference or an in-person meeting to sit and talk about how we can help you.
Awesome. All right. Abigail, it's such a great pleasure to speak with you again and have you on the show. I look forward to additional segments here with you. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that is it for this segment. We'll be right back with another subject matter expert.
Do you have diabetes? If you have insurance, you may qualify for a new continuous glucose monitor. With a CGM, you can continuously track your levels and trends, spend more time in range, significantly lower your A1C, and share important data with loved ones and caregivers. Most importantly, a CGM eliminates the one thing most people with diabetes hate: painful finger sticks. Take charge of your health. Order your new continuous glucose monitor today. If you use insulin and have seen your diabetes care provider within the last 6 months, you may qualify for a CGM today. We'll do all the insurance paperwork and deliver your new CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost to you. Medicare and most insurances cover continuous glucose monitors, so don't wait. Have your insurance handy and call the CGM Health Hotline now.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to. So make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare